Physicist Erwin Schrodinger became famous for his thought experiment. If you put a dragon in a castle and tell everyone that it's long in the dying, they'll never be able to be sure if it's alive or dead. The name of the dragon that he used in this hypothetical way back when was of course Sunfyre, and therefore the name of the thought experiment became Schrodinger's Sunfyre. This is coincidentally very similar to a situation that we're dealing with in House of the Dragon. We were told that the dragon Sunfyre is long in the dying and being kept at Rook's Rest. This has led to a situation where, over a month after the season ended, people in the fandom are still asking the question, is Sunfyre alive or dead? Could House of the Dragon be making a change from what happens with Sunfyre in the books, and therefore could this be one of the toxic butterflies that George tried to warn us about in that now deleted blog post? So today I'm going to break down what exactly we were told about Sunfyre in Season 2, then I'm going to cover what happens in the books up to this point, and then I'll give a further spoiler warning before I go into things that happen in the future of the books and therefore may happen in future seasons. Also, just as a little bit of forewarning, the comments section on this one may be full of spoilers just given the nature of the topic that we're going to be discussing in the back half of the video, so stray down there at your own risk, but the like and subscribe button are completely safe. Alright, so starting as I said with Season 2, we saw obviously the Battle of Rook's Rest where Aegon hopped on Sunfyre after an adorable little head boop, and they flew off into war as Aegon was really drunk. And then we obviously saw a big fight, and the dragon and rider both got burned by Vhagar. We saw the pair of them fall out of the sky and do a crash landing, and then their bodies were found, and at that time they were both still barely alive. I think that if they wanted Sunfyre to be dead, this is probably the time that they could have shown us that. There's no reason to have the dragon just not be pronounced dead on the scene. It would have been more dramatic for an end to this battle in this episode. So the fact that Sunfyre is still alive here makes me give some pretty strong points towards the idea that Sunfyre is just still alive. We'll get more into which way I lean and why I think so as we go on, obviously. But I do just want to say, I think that it is actually still a bit of an open case, right? Like, I lean like 90% one way, but there's like a 10% chance that it could go the other way, and I'll explain why I think that is. But okay, back to the Season 2 Sunfyre timeline. So, injured at Rook's Rest, but still alive, and then we see Aegon brought back to the city, and we get to see a bunch of Aegon's recovery throughout the season, but we have not seen Sunfyre again. Kristen Cole tells Alicent that the dragon is, quote, long in the dying, and this obviously confused some people. I didn't exactly know what it meant at first when I first heard it, but then I thought about it for a moment, and basically he's just saying the dragon is taking a long time to die. It is dying, but it is taking long in the dying. So, at least according to Kristen Cole, who is notably not a dragon doctor, this dragon is probably dying in his opinion, but it's taking a long time to do so, and that's why he also says that he stationed some guards around the dragon, and it's staying at Rook's Rest. It's obviously a big dragon, so they can't really move it if it's unable to move itself, so it's probably going to have to stay where it was injured to recover. Now, obviously, Kristen doesn't think it's going to recover. He thinks the injuries are too severe, and that's probably just the news that's come back to the capital because everyone saw the dragon along with Kristen Cole. So if the dragon was looking like it was dying, that's probably just what the people in King's Landing think is happening. This potentially becomes important because later on in the season, the next time that we hear about Sunfyre in detail is Aegon when he's basically talking about how terrible and depressing his life is. One of the things that he mentions is that his dragon is dead. So, Kristen, when he was talking about the dragon, said it was still alive, but it was dying in his opinion, and then later on, Aegon says that it's dead. This is obviously a pretty convincing case to make that Sunfyre is in fact just dead. Aegon has a psychic bond with Sunfyre on some level or another, so if he says it's dead, that's some pretty serious evidence that this dragon is in fact just dead. So now that we've been given a compelling reason to suspect that Sunfyre is alive, as well as a compelling reason to suspect that Sunfyre is dead, we have no more Sunfyre for the rest of the season. This leaves us with the situation I explained at the beginning, the Schrodinger's Sunfyre. And now we're going to have to get into what happens in the books. So if you don't want to know anything that happens in the books at all, now would be the time to go, but for now I'm just going to only cover up to the point that we are in the story right now, right? So, like, only up to this point so far, and then I'll let you know before I cover any future stuff, okay? So, in the books at this point, in the Battle of Rook's Rest, Sunfyre doesn't die. It is wounded in the same way that we saw in the show, and then it stays there recovering. But in the books, as of this point in the story, the dragon Sunfyre is not yet dead, and is basically in the exact condition that it's in the show, if it's just sitting there at Rook's Rest, very badly wounded and slowly recovering. Considering the door has been left open to this possibility by what we saw in the show, I would say there's like a 90% chance that the show is just doing exactly what happens in the books with Sunfyre. So that would mean that as of right now, I'd say there's a 90% chance that the answer to our question is that Sunfyre is still alive. But the thing that leaves the door open to the dragon not being alive is the combination of Aegon, who again would have a psychic link with Sunfyre, saying that the dragon is dead, in combination with George putting out a blog post where he mentions that there are several toxic butterflies that are at least being considered for future seasons. If they did change things up and have Sunfyre just stay dead, that would definitely be a potential toxic butterfly. Because if you didn't see my video about the blog post or any of the other videos or the blog post itself, well, basically George outlined how little changes have a butterfly effect later on in the story. He explained in pretty straightforward detail how little changes that they've already made, such as Maelor not being in the show, will have profound effects later on down the road because basically little events happen surrounding that character that then lead to bigger and bigger events that eventually spiral into like main end game sort of stuff. This butterfly effect is something that you really should pay attention to when you're making changes in an adaptation, and I think this is just what George is trying to point out. We'll definitely talk more about that blog post in a future video because more just sort of reaction and everything to that is rolling in, so just make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But to the point of this video, Sunfyre being one of these toxic butterflies is something that really makes a lot of sense. Because the dragon not being dead does actually go on to have an effect later on in the story. And this is the point where I have to give a future spoiler warning, because now we're going to be talking about things that will happen in the future of the books, and therefore are very likely to happen in the future of the show, as long as they don't completely change direction. So, as we give those people who don't want to be spoiled on any future plot lines a chance to navigate away, I would definitely be interested to hear down in the comments what you guys think of the idea of Sunfyre being one of these toxic butterflies. Do you think that Sunfyre is alive or dead? And how do you think it could play out if in fact the dragon is dead? Okay, so that should be long enough for the people to navigate away if they don't want to know any of the sort of endgame fates of the main characters. And this is something that George actually spoiled in his blog post as well. He brought up how the butterfly effect from Maelor not being there could change the causes and effects that lead to Rhaenyra going back to Dragonstone, and as he put it, and her death. So they've proven that they're willing to make little changes with characters that have butterfly effects that will actually sort of affect the way that major endgame stuff happens, even stuff as big as Rhaenyra's death. This is pretty relevant because, well, since we're past all the spoiler warnings, I can say it. After slowly recovering at Rook's Rest, the same way that it's doing currently in the show, eventually gets back enough strength to hippity hop its way back over to Dragonstone, which is not that far away, and it gets back just in time to randomly chomp down on and eat Rhaenyra. At least that's the way I understand it. I don't know all of the details of Fire and Blood, but that is one that I do know, and that is obviously a pretty major butterfly effect if they actually have Sunfyre end up being dead. If they do this, they would need to completely change the death of Rhaenyra and therefore the major end story beats of the entire thing. So I don't know if that's something that they would be willing to do, and that's why I think so many people are concerned when Aegon just straight up said, "My dragon is dead." It has definitely left the door open to Sunfyre coming back next season and just actually being dead. I really hope that they don't do this. I hope that they don't like look at it as like a, oh, this will keep people guessing and keep them intrigued. It's like no, like this is like major story plotline stuff that we want to see put on the screen. If you're watching an adaptation of the Dance of the Dragons, you want to see these sort of events like Rhaenyra getting eaten by Sunfyre take place. It's almost crazy to think that they would even be considering this, and like that's why I said it's like 90% in my opinion that there's no way that they're going to do this. But at the same time, we've already seen that they're making some pretty major changes that I would have never made myself. Such as, it seems one of the toxic butterflies is very obviously the idea of not including nettles, which is another thing that they left the door open for going either way. They're very clearly leaning in one direction, but it's not too late to change it, which is again why I think George is trying to put a bit of pressure on them and going public in the way that he did. Could they be considering Sunfyre just being dead in the same way that Nettles is apparently just maybe not going to exist? I don't know. I'm very curious to hear what you guys think of that down in the comments. It seems like it would be just completely insane to me and completely unneeded, just an unforced error that would definitely hurt the show. But they've already made a few unforced errors, in my opinion, so I don't know. Like, maybe this is something that they would be considering doing, and this would definitely be something that George would probably be freaking out about behind the scenes, and that may cause him to post about toxic butterflies. Also, I do just want to take a moment because I didn't do it in my last video where I talked about the toxic butterflies blog post, but I just want to appreciate how funny it is that George is referring to these writing changes that'll have a major butterfly effect as toxic butterflies, when one of the main things that they really messed up in season 8 was that they sent all of the Unsullied off to an island full of toxic butterflies that would kill them. This was one of those things that sort of became a meme within the fandom because they just completely ignored the world building, and therefore it led to one of the characters in season 8 saying something that's just completely stupid to people who know about the world. This sort of effect where an adaptation starts to ignore the world building and then all of a sudden has characters saying something that's completely ridiculous to people who are fans of the series, well, that's an effect that can really ruin an adaptation. And also the butterfly effect that George talked about, so he combines the two into toxic butterflies, and then warns that there are some toxic butterflies coming in House of the Dragon if they don't change course. So yeah, even though George's entire blog post has me very concerned for the future of House of the Dragon and just all of these HBO adaptations of George's world, it definitely did give me a little chuckle and it was pretty creative the way that he phrased things. If I had to make my bet right now about Sunfyre, I would say that the dragon is still alive. I would say that Aegon is basically only saying Sunfyre is dead because he's just super depressed and he's basically just like exaggerating just on some level or another how terrible everything is for effect, right? So that it hits home how just terrible and worthless his life feels to him at that moment. His sausage is destroyed. His dragon is dead. His kingdom is falling apart in civil war. All of these things are just basically spelling out how terrible his life is, and him saying his dragon is dead rather than saying my dragon is slowly dying and barely clinging to life. It's just more dramatic effect if he just says the dragon's dead. I think that's why he said it. I don't think that he's literally saying like my dragon is actually like legit dead. I think he's saying it's, you know, it's dead as in like it's basically dead, but it's not there yet. That's how I read that. That's the only way that I really can read Aegon saying his dragon is dead. Because if the dragon's actually dead, then, well, that just starts to create a bunch of problems for the future of the series that I don't even want to think about until they're going to force me to think about them, if indeed we come back for season 3 and Sunfyre is gone. But I just wanted to cover this because I've seen a lot of people talking about it, genuinely asking if the dragon is alive or dead, and then also talking about could this be a toxic butterfly, so I just kind of wanted to give my 2 cents on the whole thing. Thank you guys very much for watching if you've made it this far into the video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't before you go, and I'll be back with something else very soon.